mugged again at the end, that's for sure. Our two brave souls who are part of a breakaway, an original one of 10, they've got an advantage at the moment of 45 seconds on the chasers. Pretty handy chase group as well. Philippe Gilbert, Ben Swift from Sky, Gilbert of course from BMC. Lawrence Tendam, the Wolfman from Giant Alpecin. We've got Peter Wiening, who was lively yesterday for Rompot. This is the peloton, so we've missed out on our the remainder of our breakaway. Ruben Plaza is up the road as well for Orica Greenedge. He's in no man's land at the moment with the others. Satovic from Team Katusha, Durasek from Lampre Merida, and Boris Dron, the King of the Mountains jersey wearer for Wanty Group Hubert, is also in that group. These are the pack. They are chasing down and they have reduced the gap, but it's still 7 minutes. Now on a descent, you can hold a gap as two riders. It's doing it on the climb, Magnus, that's the tough bit, and they're on one now.
It is definitely difficult to sort of hold the gap on the favourites when they start climbing. Certainly when you get in towards the back end of the race, when we're looking at the main favourite starting to potentially make a bit of a move, or at least starting to get their teammates to put some pressure on the pedals going up the next climb here. But even on this particular descent, a peloton would move quicker should they sort of help each other out by sort of sling shooting past each other and effectively creating some sort of a team time trial going down here. It's such a fast descent that if you get into slipstream, you build up the pace and then you just go past the guy in front of you, and it just drives up the pace more and more and more.
Well, plenty of highway to choose from, so the lines that they pick through, I guess, are less defined. So here we are, though, looking at them right now on board with the motorcycle with 42 kilometres to go, and they're still coming downhill where our breakaway are climbing. No surprise there, with a 7-minute advantage, pretty handy. But they are climbing, and there are the remnants of the original breakaway as well. It looks like we have a quartet of fun to deal with. They're not having fun. Peter Wiening still solidly within here, and giant nearest to us, Lawrence Temdam, he of the tarmac eating habit. Seen him face plant too many times really throughout his career. Doesn't seem to have affected his looks, although he does wear a big beard as a result, or maybe just doesn't shave it all off on a regular basis. Lovely bloke, Tendam, and sort of one of my favourites to kind of watch out for. But there we are. We've got Nicola Porta. Is coming up in a few moments' time, so we've got others to chat to as well. Quintana and Rodriguez we had a word with at the top of the day. I'm hoping we'll have time to drop some of those in. All depends on the action and how it's going, but at the moment Aviti gets tempted into doing something at least by Thomas de Gent. De Gent, the smaller of the two athletes, up the road as we speak, being chased by what looks like a reduced number behind. So while we've got a moment, let's have a brief chat to Nico Portal and find out exactly what he's got to say for himself.
Vous avez vu hier, en fait, même si sur le plateau, sur le papier, il y a beaucoup de leaders.
Well, as you saw yesterday, there was a lot of leaders in this race. A lot of teams are playing a strategy. That's the way it is. They don't want to take control, so we didn't have any other choice but to ride at the front with Movistar. And we have riders for that, and we know how to deal with it. It's not a problem. But it's also true that if you didn't ride like that in the race, then it's already over. So today, it should be a bit different. We can clearly see that some teams here are with the leader for the overall classification will be their turn to manage the race, and we'll wait and see. He says we have 3 or 4 different options.
Si tout fonctionne bien, on devrait avoir un peu plus d'espace.
Like Nieve, it was okay yesterday, so if we function well, we should be fine. So expect more from Sky today. Gosh, finally got there from sporting director Nico Portal, speaking of course about Team Sky. Now let's just dwell on that as we just drop in here on Peter Wiening, who's a sucker for punishment. He did a late push yesterday, trying once again at least to push the pedals. That's what this game is all about after all. Let's talk about Sky. Did they burn themselves too badly yesterday, or was it a question of testing themselves out and saving it for today?
I think the they did what they needed to do, and did a good job in doing so. But the problem was that they didn't go hard enough early enough to put the pressure on the rest of the bunch. That is an explosive type of finish, and I think if you leave it until after that little and I caught you there bowl, it was always going to be too much of an explosive climb and not steep enough for someone like Chris Froome.
So basically, not long enough or steep enough for Chris Froome to function properly.
No, I think they could have done it slightly differently and actually started the racing on the climb much earlier than what they did. But it's always a question of, you know, it's easy for us to sit here and watch it and sort of say what they should have done. But in my eyes, they needed to open that up a little bit earlier and put some more pressure on it. Yeah.
40 kilometres to go, which tells you that we're in the middle of the penultimate climb. In fact, nearing the top of it right now are our breakaway. They'll be there in short order, actually, about 2 kilometres time.
Yeah, 2-3k.
Yeah, exactly. They will have dealt with the toughest section, which is 12%, 6.8 average. It's only categorised 1, and then they go into what can only be described as a saucer at the top. So a bit of downhill, a bit of uphill, and then downhill solidly for 9k's onto a flat plateau of 6 before the final climb of 18.5 kilometres. Hope that puts it in your mind. One man who went brilliantly yesterday, and it's so lovely to see because he is a youngster after all, Hugh Carthy. Now, Mike Black, a little while ago now, he's up there in Preston, God's own country he calls it. I've got to agree, it's an absolutely beautiful part of the world. The Trough of Bowland, and on occasion it does look dissimilar to what you can see on your screen absolutely right now. Not the highest of alpine peaks, of course, it's close to the Lake District, and in fact Queen Elizabeth II, when she was asked where she'd like to end her days, said the Trough of Bowland. And everyone went, where? But I know it very well indeed. I used to ride around there myself out of Lancaster University. Showing off now. But anyway, that is where young Hugh does an awful lot of his work. All 6'3" of him, again, same as me. He's a lot skinnier than I am, and indeed younger than I am, and he's a better climber than I ever was. Absolute genius, and we'll have more on the youngster that so many are talking about after his top 10 finish yesterday and some massive scalps. Welcome back. Peter Weening is busy with 39 kilometres to go. He's got reason to. He's got to close down on these guys. And he's bridging over, and I think he might just make it, turning this diamond duo into a terrific trio. Let's see if he does. Right now, Imanol Iveti has decided to take a turn. As you can probably tell from the road they're on at the moment, once they get to the top, they're going to be on similar roads when they come down for the 9 kilometres of descending. That's really going to define this race. So who's determined to push on? Well, Sky have been doing a lot of chasing. Movistar not that much. So we start asking questions about Nairo Quintana. And there he is. He's just within sight of them right now. Very, very good effort by Peter Weening to get back onto the wheels of his quarry, which is Thomas de Gent and Iveti Imanol. Well, what a lovely day for a bike ride, you've got to say. Peter Weening has nearly done it. 38 kilometres from home. He suddenly finds himself almost on the wheels of Thomas de Gent and Imanol Iveti. So the three of them are going to take on the little plateau at the top of this one, and they'll be there before you know it. I think they've got about 1,500, 1,300 metres to go, that sort of thing. There we are, he's listed as the chaser. Well, that's a gap we don't need. What we'd like to see is how close the peloton are, please, Mr. Graphics Man in Spain. Looking down, there we are, and guess what? Defending the jersey, Ethics Quickstep. Dan Martin is in the whitish leader's jersey. I say that because it's pretty indistinct. Bardet is very, very close at hand, and also the leader of the Young Riders competition, and that's a handy thing. He's a handy man as well. Along the way, we've got David Formolo, who is, well, frankly, been riding brilliantly of late. I know it's very, very early, Magnus, so do you want to sort of guess a scenario now that you can see that Ethics are in determined mood at least to chase it down? It means that some others are going to get a bit of an easier ride today, and so they can stretch their stuff. I see that the youngster from Orica, Chavez, is also very much in the house here.
Well, I think we're still looking at the same kind of scenario as yesterday in terms of what riders are going to be up the front. Obviously, there's a completely different stage today. We're going over some big mountains, and there's an awful lot of climbing left to be done as well. But I think we're likely to see a similar kind of setup with, although Ethics Quickstep doing the majority of the work, I think Team Sky are definitely going to come to the fore at some point in the near future here and start pressing on. This is more of an alpine finish than what we saw yesterday, and certainly something that's more within Chris Froome and Alberto Contador and the rest really to do. It's not quite as explosive, which really suited a climber like Dan Martin. Obviously, he's been able to. Well, he's a very competent climber in his own right, even on this sort of stuff, but maybe not quite as good as you know, the real big GC favourites.
I want to see how Richie Porte goes. He had a push yesterday and kind of mistimed it, I think. I think it said he blew up yesterday earlier. That's not what I meant. But he just mistimed it. TJ Van Garderen actually was the best finisher from Team BNC, and they've both got an interest, still very much involved in the battle for the title here. I think that's what's great about this particular race, is that there's so much talent drawn to it because it's the first proper test in reasonable weather conditions, although this particular day has been dogged by inclement weather over the last couple of years, and some say that's why Dan Martin was able to succeed here. But don't count him out for today, Dan Martin.
No, definitely not. And obviously with the leader's jersey on his back and his team doing all the work, he's going to want to repay them for their efforts. So and looking at Dan yesterday, he looks in very good shape. He looks strong and he looks fit. And with that, I think he's going to be certainly be playing a big part of the final climb.
Some of you asking, why is Hugh Carthy riding for Cairo Royale? Well, they were the ones that signed him after he did a fantastic job to win the Tour of Korea, which was no mean feat, to be honest. In 2014, they said, we'll have him. And I think a lot of teams are actually looking rather enviously at that. He's a great guy. He's very much part of the scene and always has been. And in fact, these days when he goes home, you can still find him on the A6 to Garstang. He pays his £3 dibs to do one of those 10s in whatever weather. So I hope you're liking Hugh Carthy as much as I am. To be honest, I didn't want to build him up too much ahead of this race, just in case he got knocked down. But yesterday he proved that as a young man he can function with the very best, and he's actually saying he's looking to bagsy a spot on the Vuelta, Tour of Spain.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
I think he's certainly capable of that, and you know he did a couple of years for Rafa Kono JLT at that point. So he did
right.
2 years on the sort of continental scene at this level, being looked after by John Herity, and they did a great job with him and developing him into the rider that, or just at least the start of the rider that he is today. And last year he rode well, but still very much learning and building strength, and we can just about start to see the quality that Hugh has, certainly on yesterday's stage, and hopefully today as well.
So from a young emerging star to one who's already in the firmament, here's Quintana.
Bueno, ayer fue un día muy duro. ¿Cómo te encontraste?
So yesterday was very hard. How do you feel? I feel good. She talks slowly, but then again he's busy. I've recovered from yesterday, and I hope that I'll be in good condition on today's climb. My teammates are in good shape and we'll try to do something. Question is, it's your first race, another how do you feel question. Well, I've got good sensations. I finished 6th yesterday. I haven't haven't raced on a world tour for a while, and it's good to test myself and see how much of a good feeling I have, but it wasn't bad yesterday at all. I'm going to try today to measure my physical state and the body, and we'll see whether I need, how much rest I need after such a long period. He's been busy for months. There we are. So De Gent, it is that rolls over. I think he deserved to do that, to be honest. He did most of the work. He takes himself a handy gel. So that is your penultimate climb. They've got another little kick up in a little while, because right now they're on one of what we've described as a little bit of saucer. So they'll go down, then they'll sort of skirting around here, then they'll pitch back up, and then finally they get engaged with this 9-kilometre descent, but they're going to take a little while. And here's that little kick up of a lip. It does waver a little bit. It's going to be a little while, possibly about 3 or 4 Ks before they finally go into descending proper. And on the chase, as you can see, this is 10 Dam, the Wolfman. Across the line he goes. Lupine is wolf-like. I think I used to call it supine, which I think that's ape-like. But anyway,
they're all animal-like.
Yeah, why don't they call him
this descent
anyway.
is something completely different to what we saw before, though, and it's going to be a lot more in favour of the breakaways to descend on this narrow, quite twisty and technical descent than on the previous one. It's just a question of who's if they're prepared to commit to it.
Yes, let's see. Commitment is what they're going to need. I don't put it past De Gent. That's all I'm saying. Don't put it past De Gent. Although he's got Wiening for company now, and he probably won't much like that. Wiening will be, if he goes well today, will be dedicating his victory, if it happens, to Johan Cruijff, I'm sure. There's a lot of Dutch athletes out there who'll be wanting to shine brightly today, I imagine.
Yeah, well, Poels here has he gone off the front, or is he actually looking? Has he gone dropped? I think he's actually launched himself into the open space there between the chasing group and the peloton. And
hard to tell because we're not being given the moto.
Yeah, but now this is clearly the tactic of Team Sky is to launch themselves into this and set some riders up the road for Chris Froome or maybe Geraint Thomas. I don't know yet. They're obviously both going. Well, I think we know that Geraint Thomas is going really well, but we're not quite sure about Chris Froome just yet. But I think both of them will be very, very much to the fore in the on the final climb.
Aviti has just skipped off, as you can see. Movistar are known for being talented descenders.
That's one thing that I find a little bit strange, because in the past, Spanish riders were known for being.
And we used to comment about it, didn't we?
Yeah, they always went well up the hill, but then, as they say, what goes up must come down, and usually they didn't.
Well, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, they were shocking, and clearly stung by your criticism and observations, Magnus. They did something about it, which you've got to admire.
May have gone to a downhill training camp.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear, almost visiting the barbecue area was Satovic there of Katusha leading this quartet. Well, he's looking down as if he made a bad gear selection there, or he's trying to blame the machine. But there you are. Yes, what is it? The poor cobbler blames his all.
Wow.
Or something like that.
The thing is, when you're coming into that kind of a corner and it tightens up so much more than what you expect it to do, then you will be in completely the wrong gear, because you're expecting to just fly around this bend. All of a sudden you have to slam on the anchors to get the bike to slow down to actually make the corner before the brick wall, and that just means that you're on your biggest gear, and you have to change gear to get that going again. But Aviti here now really pressing on and doing a great job with it.
He's not hanging about. Well, he got a free ride up the mountain. He didn't have to do too much with Thomas De Gent, because he was basically saying, no, I'm working for Quintana. We suggested he might mug them, and that's what he's done on the arrival of Peter Wiening as part of this trio, and he's gone. I think he wants to put something in the bank before he gets to the final climb, because the others are capable of catching him. Of all of them here, Aviti's not the best climber, but he's still a powerful man.
He's a very capable rider in all sorts of terrain, to be honest. What I find a bit strange though is that he could have worked a bit more with De Gent on the climb if this was his plan all along. Even taking De Gent with him at this point would not have been a bad idea to had they pressed on hard. But I think we'll see Peter Weening and Thomas De Gent catch him up again as a duo when we get down to a slightly flatter part. And there's not an awful lot of flat in between these two climbs, I've got to say. It's what I would like to call a bit of a false flat up the valley before you turn right off the main road and start climbing again.
If you're wondering why all those houses were actually locked together and there seems to be an awful lot of space available in the locale, it's a limestone outcrop which they founded the village on. So good foundations, houses not going to slide down the mountain. So that's the reason why. Get it all here. 33 kilometres then remaining of the day. That's for those who are up the road. Still haven't got a gap back to the peloton at the moment. Last order was 7 minutes, but that was before the big 20-kilometre descent. It's a nice piece of information that would help you at home, and indeed us, to know what the scenario is and whether it's worth the likes of Wout Poels actually rolling off the nose and giving it a go. There is Ethics, and of course Dan Martin, resplendent in the leader's jersey. Oh, at long last, thank you very much. 6 minutes and 36. See, ask and you shall receive. The chasers are now 39 seconds down, but only on this man, because he's actually, that's back to, I think, the original breakaway group, unless he's managed to find 36, 39 seconds even on poor old Thomas De Gent and Peter Weening. It was. He looked like a bit sticky. There's a lot of dust here, and that can be almost as bad as a wet road, can't it? Well,
there's dust and there's an awful lot of mud on the road as well on those corners. So need to pay a bit of attention on that one.
Well, that can be a bit of a warning, and you can wake up to the potential dangers and just ease off a little bit.
Yeah, well, waking up to the dangers, I think these guys are pressing on as hard as they can. So the problem is going to be when you commit into a corner and it looks like it's nice and clear tarmac, and then all of a sudden you're coming around it and you've got all the dust and all the mud on it, then tends to be a bit of an issue.
You do test the limits. I know it's a different sport, but the great Mario Andretti once said that if everything is under control, you're not going fast enough.
No, definitely not.
And I think that...
Well, I tended to certainly coming in for sprints, the final corner of any race, I sort of applied the 70% chance that I didn't make it around the corner was good enough to come out on the other side first, and that seems to work. So as long as you manage to hold the bike upright, then you're at the other side and you're in the lead, and that's kind of where you needed to be.
I'm reminded by Chris Townsend and Paul Spur that supine actually means lying on your back looking upwards. Some of these guys, if they get it wrong, could be doing exactly that. Simian was the word I was looking for, meaning aim flag. Thanks, guys. I don't know what's happened to my brain of late.
It's good that someone keeps you in check.
Exactly. Somebody's like, I feel that the choke chain has been pulled. Thank you very much. 30 k's to go. In fact, Whoozy Madness has posted a fetching. Oh, hello. Now that barrier is going to catch somebody out. That barrier is going to catch somebody out on that curve. It's off camber. This one is as well. Look at that. Not much banking to play with there. Take care, everybody.
Ayer un día muy duro, ¿cómo te encontraste?
No demasiado bien.
It's Burrito. He says, yesterday was a very hard day. How do you feel? Another how do you feel question. Not very good. I knew I couldn't win, but I thought it was. I was in better condition to that. Today can be better for you. I hope so. But it'll be a hard stage in general. Very high this year. The level. It's going to be hard. What about the problems that you had on the Algarve? Well, that's over, of course. But it's also delayed my preparation, and that's why my objective on this Volta is just basically to go as hard as I can and then maybe go for the Basque. We'll see. Classic races. Could you, would you, was the final question, be able to see the best Perito on the Basque Tour? We'll be seeing the best of you there. He said, I really, really hope so. We hope so too. We're doing that one as well, Maggie.
We certainly are.
We're staying in the land of the chorizo. 29 kilometres to go. There's that little village we were talking about earlier on. It still stays on the limestone outcrop. There they are. Isn't it absolutely beautiful in this part of the world?
It certainly is. Great countryside to ride a bike in.
I think often when you're watching your telly, you really should be making a note of some of these places and striking out to go and visit them. Hello. Now this is busy.
Well, this is Poles having caught up to Ben Swift, who was in the earlier break, and Ben now doing the lion's share of the work for as long as he possibly can for Poles. So this is an interesting one. This one.
Very much so. So Wout Poels is the chosen man, at least for now. Rather than just sacrificing themselves and giving everyone a free ride, they've decided to mix it up, Sky. They send a man in the break in the form of Ben Swift. Wout Poels pushed on to try and get back to his man. I imagine that Ben Swift just dropped back for him, but we're not aware of where they are within it. But nonetheless, not in a bad place. Ben Swift, no threat. Just readjusting myself after almost falling off my chair. Viti out front is in one of the most focused descents I've seen for some time. The lean angles which he's taking into some of the corners, I'm fearful there's a bit of gravel that might well do for him. But at the moment he's keeping the bike upright, thank heaven, and he's doing a fabulous job. So are the boys from Team Sky, and Wout Poels, he's turning into a bit of a monster. This could be a great day for him.
Well, Poels is a serious climber. He's done incredibly well in the early parts of this year.
And significantly, he finds himself starting today only 32 seconds adrift. He could find that here. Let's find out whether he does with 24 kilometres to go.
Well, I think the plan,
Philippe Gilbert, by the way, that's tagged onto the back of them.
Yeah, the plan is obviously for Ben Swift to do as much as he possibly can now until they hit the foot of the next climb, and then let Wout Poels go along.
Wow, we have seen Philippe Gilbert join the two Sky riders, or vice versa, because Ben Swift dropped back to help Wout Poels. Wout Poels starting the day only 32 seconds down, and that's a big alarm bell that's just been rung by Team Sky, and everyone else is having to respond to it. I think the starter pistol has already been fired for this stage, and the man up front, Imanol Oviti, is charging down this descent. And in fact, there's been some very squeaky moments, I can tell you. The squeaks were coming from me. Magnus was very calm about the whole thing. But to my mind, he is investing so much into this descent. Now he's got to hold his advantage for 6 kilometres on the flat before the final climb. This is still our breakaway, Satovic Plaza, Tendam and Durazek. But the main factor and the main focus, at least in our minds, is starting to be Wout Poels and Ben Swift, who are just in combative mood, let's put it that way. Likewise, Oviti, who's up the road, and of course De Gent and Peter Weening, they're all over the mountain.
Yeah, certainly are spread out quite widely at the moment, but this man does a fantastic job so far today, and it'd be interesting to see what the actual plan is for Quintana and the Movistar team. Is Viti going to go ahead and effectively grab this stage win?
Well, it would be absolutely outstanding. He would have played it absolutely perfectly. He's a strong man. He may not be the ultimate climber, but he can climb. And with the kind of cushion he's built into his approach, he's got, what, 18.5 Ks to go is when the climb begins. So do the maths. He's got 4.5 kilometres or 4 kilometres thereabouts to go before he actually engages in the final test.
I guess the thing is with Viti is that he's 17 minutes down on the general classification, so he's not really a danger to the overall, which is why no one's really too bothered about him going up the road. The problem right now for Ethics Quickstep is Wout Poels just up the road, and obviously having Ben Swift to his services as well, they're going to definitely press on. And I think actually for someone like Philippe Gilbert, it wouldn't be a bad idea for Gilbert to actually help the Sky Riders for a moment, just to put even further pressure on Ethics.
Ayer fue el primer llegada en alto, ¿cómo te encontraste?
Bring a boat tour around.
Bueno, yo creo
Speaking
que
at the
bien, lo que
top
pasa
of
es
the
que aún
day.
se encontraba más que yo.
Yesterday we had the
Ha sido
first
una
finish
etapa
on
complicada,
top.
pero bueno, yo creo que
How
es,
do you feel?
una
I feel
etapa
okay,
ya
but what
de
happens
unos puertos
is the other
mucho más
riders feel better than me.
complicados, más difíciles.
It's a complicated stage with
Y, bueno,
difficult
de
climbs, and this
momento,
year's race is
esta
very,
vuelta
very
ha
hard.
mostrado
A stage with more than 4,000 metres of variation of level of 40 riders on the basically the same time, and that means that the general level is super high. And well, let's just wait and see what we're going to deal with on today's complicated climbs. What do you expect from today? I expect to be in the front, and he says, I will try something if I can. Seems to have been around for an awful long time, around, but he's kind of fallen off the radar for many people, I guess because of the emergence of so many other decent Colombians, but he still remains a great threat on a day such as this. Well, we went through Alp earlier. This is Re-Alp. Do you think it looks pretty much the same?
It kind
to
of
the
does.
guy who named it.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, this is Oviti, who just takes on a little bit of fluid to get on with the remainder of the day. Now, 1 Celsius at the finish, warming up a bit now. In fact, reasonably chilly, and this is last drinks by the looks of things being offered at the 21k marker.
It certainly does, but 2,000 metres of altitude, it's going to be cold up at the top. There's still snow up there, so the riders, and I think we could see on the interview with Dan Martin at the start of the programme that he was struggling to talk. He was that cold at the time when he did that interview.
David Shriv says, no time splits being offered. Hard to work out. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I know.
You tell them.
Could you tell them? We've done everything we can. Well, I won't even go into detail, but you know, we tried smoke signals with a chorizo barbecue. That didn't work either. 21 kilometres remaining, and into the darkness. Still low frequency sunshine as we're just heading, of course, or breaking into spring. Easter announcing that. Lots of festivals coming up this weekend, and somebody's going to be cock-a-hoop by the end of it. Will it be Dan Martin? Now, it's clearly that this is a fractured descent right now. They're having to invest a lot of pace into it. And will it pay dividends at the end? I don't know. Today is such a conundrum. 20 kilometres doesn't sound like an awful lot, but there's an awfully big climb still to be taken on.
Yeah, it is a big climb to do, definitely, and it's a hard climb as well. It's quite steep at the bottom, and well, it doesn't really let the gradient drop at any point, to be honest. But it will be a perfect battleground for the big boys to really test each other and see who's going well.
Well, it is going to be a perfect battleground. So I'm going to ask you early. Who do you think today?
Ooh.
If you hadn't seen poles up the road, what would you have said?
Well, even with poles up there, I think it's going to be difficult for him to win the stage. Right now, I think Erviti, the way he's climbing, he's certainly going well enough. And last time gap we have was 6.5 minutes. He's likely to lose a little bit more by the time he starts the final climb, but that is a big enough gap for him to effectively hold on for the stage win. So I'm gonna go with Erviti for the stage. But at the same time, if we're talking the main favourites, I think TJ. I have to. It's an important decision to make, Carlton.
It's the whirring sound of your mind. That's what's off-putting. Yeah, I think TJ looked very fresh yesterday, didn't he? I've got a feeling that. Richie Porte might have another dig today and sort of time himself a little bit better. I think it's more of a suitable climb for Richie Porte today. I'd love to see Richie Porte go well, to be honest, for BMC. So, but deep down, if I really am going to sort of push the boat out and say, you know, when you get a chocolate box selection, you say, I'll have that one. If nobody else really wants it, that's the one I'd really like. Hugh Carthy. I'd love to see him go well.
That would be something
Wouldn't that just
special.
be a dream? Wouldn't that be a dream? I'm not saying he's... well, it probably is a dream. Yeah, but he's about to have a nightmare because it's a horrible climb. Let's talk about it. The climb that we're dealing with today. Tell you what, we'll take a break and then we'll deal with it afterwards. But very briefly, 18.5 kilometres, 6.8%. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? 12% maximum. And believe me, some places it's actually a little bit more than that, but because of the nature of it, big turn into the climb, and Eviti is the first to take it on. He's at the foot of it right now, so the ticker's just slightly out, and he's out of the saddle as well. This is a bid for glory from a man who's taken 2 stages on the Vuelta. Can he do it again? He has played a blinder already. Win or lose, he's getting rid of heavy bottles right now. He'll take a toot wherever he can get one. And maybe it was just an empty, but he's ready to go right now. So are we. So we'll take ourselves a brief break, and then we'll be back. That's a King of the Mountains jersey. They need to work on the distinctiveness of their jerseys.
I think he matches rather well with his bar stem and bar tape.
Apparently the tape was put on just to remind him to go for it.
But the whole team had it, though.
There we are. So, coming through Rialp. Apparently it's Rialpi. But, well, they should have put an E on the end. We've been speculating as our producer launches something towards the waste paper basket as to whether this man can make it. Imanol Eviti, will he get there? And will Wout Powell's do some damage and take over the overall lead?
Well, the latest time gap here now is that Eviti's got 50 seconds on the chasing group and 6 minutes ahead of the main peloton.
Wow. So, big ask then for Ben Swift to make it an easier ride for Wout Powell's. The question is, has he got the pace to assist Wout Powell's and slingshot him into contention on the day? Dunno. We're going to find out in the next 18, probably 17 Ks remaining of today.
Yeah, I think Wout Poels needs about at least 30 seconds, if not more, at the bottom of the climb to have any opportunity to really sort of give the favourites a bit of a scare, if nothing else, really, and force the pace in the bunch and put some pressure on Etix's Quickstep. But you know, Ben Swift is certainly doing a big turn on the front. He spent all day in the breakaway as well, so he won't have fresh legs by the time he gets to this one. Not that anyone will, really, after the amount of climbing that we've done, but he will certainly have spent a bit more energy than some of the other guys.
You can tell when the likes of Ten Dam are starting to just weave ever so slightly that this is a tough day. There is John in the leader's jersey of the King of the Mountains competition, I should say. That sort of orangey red. Magnus described it as lipstick red, but I didn't ask. And the handlebars there were to remind him to go for it, if you're wondering about the tape. Well, he did, and went for it yet again today, and he's just tagged on to the back, as you can see, of Philippe Gilbert, who's here with Wout Poels, who's on the radio.
Here we go then, the guys turning up the climb. And I'm suspecting this will be move over, handbrake, and warning lights on for Ben Swift.
Wout Poels has gone for it. Swifty goes backwards. Philippe Gilbert found out, likewise, our King of the Mountains competition leader, and the camera needs to just point to Wout Poels because he has left these guys almost for dead. Look at that. So Wout Poels has got one thing on his mind. Can he possibly bridge over?
Peter Weening is on his way up here.
To Weening, and indeed Eviti. Now this is bad news for Eviti if Weening manages to latch on. So the 50 seconds of gap was not to Peter Weening, it was back to Wout Poels. One can only imagine. Here is Weening on full charge. He did this yesterday, Magnus.
Yeah, and he did this on the previous climb as well. He came up to the duo of De Gent and Eviti then, and Weening certainly looks out of the breakaway here to be the best climber. And if we go back through Peter Weening's palmares, he is certainly a very capable climber. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not that surprised that he's on his way up to Eviti here.
Well, great of him to get in the breakaway. I thought after the efforts that he'd engaged with yesterday, it was possibly a tall order, but he's a tall man and he's good for it at the moment. So Eviti, I'm afraid, has not got an excuse now. He can't just sit in on and ride Peter Weening into the side of the road and say, no, I'm working for somebody else, because he's clearly been working for himself.
Well, he's clearly trying to put some, go for the stage win. With that 17-minute deficit on the general classification, there isn't an awful lot of other things that he can do at this point, other than potentially wait for a Quintana to come and catch him. But looking at Peter Weening turning that massive gear on this climb, and very effectively doing so as well. Not necessarily the most energy-saving way of climbing, you know, on a mountain like this. But some riders are just happier to turn that big gear and go on raw strength than if you compare it to the likes of Chris Froome, who pedals at an incredibly high cadence all the way up the climb. Peter Weening opting for a more, what should we call it?
Contadorian?
No, definitely not. Contador is still...
Well,
still
at least rolling with the shoulders, maybe different gearing, but
well,
my goodness. It's ungainly, isn't it?
You end up rolling with your shoulders when you're turning such a big gear, because it's effectively like doing a one-legged squat in the gym every time, and you have to counter hold the power that you're putting into it. When you're riding a smaller gear, a bit like Viti's doing here, then it's easier to hold... To hold your body steady and be more efficient in that way.
I know that, you know, you're a big guy to get up some alpine peaks and the rest of it, but what was your most comfortable? Did you find yourself sitting in the saddle longer than most?
I prefer climbing in the saddle, yes. I think that comes from my time trialing upbringing as a youngster, that, you know, you sit down and you put the power into the pedals in that way, and that seemed to be my preferred way of doing things. Certainly on the longer climbs. On the shorter ones, you can effectively smash up them out of the saddle.
7 seconds is the gap that Weening has got, just by my own counting, and that is showing the power of the man. We were talking about Viti as a possible stage winner, and right now that's all torn up. There may well be many script that ends up ripped on the floor. Peter Weening, though, for the time being, is the leading man, and it's quite a story. 16 kilometres remaining. It's a long road of hurt, and Peter Weening has got to engage it and just stop any thoughts of what's going on behind him, because in a situation like this, it's just you versus the terrain. He's got to get on with it.
He's just got to focus on what he's doing and keeping the power on the whole time, and not going too deep, just riding to what he knows he's capable of, and then at some point, then when he realizes that he can actually press on 100%, then do so for the final part.
There's Dan Martin yesterday, and he got to the end of the stage, and honestly he'd put so much into the last push, naturally enough, but he was still sort of in body shock at the end of it.
Jesper Hansen coming up to the front here. The young Dane starting to put a bit of pressure on. Clearly they're not happy with the pace here. Contador said that we need to make this go faster. Ethics Quickstep are not going fast enough for us.
Well, Dan Martin is remaining fast enough, and BMC in an absolutely long line with TJ Van Garderen and indeed Richie Porte, who I said I thought would go very well today, although I'm still dreaming about a possibility of Hugh Carthy getting another top 10. But yeah, Porte's here, so's TJ. Who do you think's the favoured man of those two?
I think they're going to play a two-card attack on this climb and see who basically ends up in the best position. But if you're looking at the lineup that BMC have brought here as well, they got Ben Hermans, who's certainly not a bad climber, Darwin Atapuma, and also Sammy Sanchez, you know, really capable climber, a lot of them.
Movistar just moving into this as well. This is for Chrono Escalada, and it's your climb, so you can see what we're dealing with. There are a couple of little respites. They generally tend to be where churches are. Don't know why. So you can stop and pray and think, I hope I make it.
Without rolling off the mountain.
Yeah, well, you know, all of these roads follow old pack horse routes through the mountains. They were sort of naturally tread by the traders as the easiest and shortest route over the peaks. And so, yeah, it really is for that, I guess. Almost, I guess you took your life in your hands in days of old before the road was metalled and we came to play with it. 15 kilometres to go, and this is Hansen laying it down at the moment. Proper pace. Dan Martin's equal to it just for the time being, but his teammates have well and truly thinned down. Very close at hand to Dan Martin's wheel is Richie Porte. Now, I'm not sure whether that means he's working for some of his other BMC teammates, including TJ Van Garderen, or whether he just wants to stay with Dan Martin and be in a prime position to launch when he wants to.
I think he's just put himself there because he's comfortable on that wheel, and he knows what he can do from there as well. Should he need assistance, he will just basically call on Atapuma and Sanchez to come up and help him and TJ.
So there's our defending champion just back as TJ Van Garderen absolutely on his wheel, locked on, and Darwin Atapuma as well. Time for a chat. It's double Dutch. And away he goes. We had the encouraging talk yesterday. Didn't quite work out. Will it work out for him today? It looks like he's rolling, I'm afraid. I don't know. He doesn't look comfortable. Then again, why would he at a moment such as this? Let's speak to Smiley Chavez, shall we? I wonder if we're going to get some English or whether it's in Spanish again. Let's have a look.
Ayer un día muy duro, hoy también muy duro. ¿Cómo estás?
Yesterday was a very hard day also. How do you feel? Oh, we're okay. We're happy. Good weather is here. Yesterday's stage was very aggressive. It was my first in the mountains for me, and I think I did well. Today's more a Colombian stage, but we'll try be at the front of the race. What do you expect from the overall classification today? I think we can do something good today. As I told you, we'll try and be in the first positions of the race, and then gives us one of those beaming smiles. They can actually make a fortune selling Chavez dolls. The mouth would take up half the face. 15 kilometers to go in a broad grin. I like Chavez. Happy boy.
It's Fabio Ruud just gone through in your picture.
Well, you know, he was more or less being written off yesterday by so many. It's difficult for some of the big names on a day where you know it's not going to be your day. You're not going to burn yourself, and so don't be surprised if Aru does something reasonable today. Movistar also getting themselves into position despite the fact that they got Oviti up the road. I think as Oviti's light just starts to fade, maybe Quintana and some of their other options could well come to the fore. Nero and Dyer are here, by the way, for Movistar. One man, though, who's... I couldn't read that, and I bet he couldn't read that either. But
if you're going to make a banner, I think you should at least make an effort and make it slightly bigger than that.
I don't know. He thought about paint, and all he had was a highlight pen, and it ran out after a piece of A5. I don't know. Somebody's now going to wind back and tell us what it says. 14 kilometres to go. Maybe he was just booking a table for tonight. Have you done that yet?
No, I haven't actually.
Again. 14 Ks. Of hurt for Peter Wiening. He's on a flatter section right now, but it's going to kick him again. Will he survive? Have you got room for a technical question, Magnus?
Yeah, of course.
Josh Whitworth, I think it is, says, any reason Rompot are back on rim brakes? Because apparently they said they were going to go disc-tastic for the whole of the season.
Well,
maybe
that is a very good question, actually. There is still an awful lot of work to be done on the disc brakes, as far as I'm concerned. They are very, very good, but it's also a question of the riders getting used to it and getting used to them in the high mountains, and the stopping power that they provide and the feel that they provide you with when you're descending. And I guess it's they just want to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing when they're up in the high mountains. It could also be such a thing as weight. They are still slightly heavier than what the normal calibers are. So that could be another reason why they're back on normal rim brakes.
There is, or has been, a suggestion that some races are not overly happy about the neutral service having to accommodate that braking system.
So far, it's a really, really messy thing in terms of professional bike racing. Anyway, you need to have your team at hand with your wheels and your discs and calibers. There isn't a standard as such on the road bikes as to what size of discs that you're going to use, what spacing are they going to be on the hub, and so on. So with that, it's virtually impossible for a neutral service car to provide a backup for anyone riding a disc brake, and obviously if half of the peloton are on disc brakes, another half aren't, and it's twice the amount of wheels that the neutral service is going to have to bring with them.
And even worse than that, if just one team decide to go for it, then, you know, whistle. 13 kilometres to go, so basically, Josh, we don't know. But
it's a very long way of describing I don't know.
but well, nice question.
Yeah.
Well spotted, yes, of course. 13 kilometres to go. Tell you what, we'll ask them. How's that?
Yeah.
And
I'll put that on your table to do that.
Jesper Hansen is a tough egg, and he's a great guy to have in the team. Of course, he's working for Alberto Contador now. Bertie looked comfy yesterday, as comfortable as anyone on that climb towards the end. And of the main players who we thought would be battling for the title, no disrespect to Dan Martin, who's won it before, of course, Bertie looked reasonably happy.
Yeah, well, he certainly looked good enough yesterday. I think that particular finish is difficult to time and difficult to get right. So today should definitely prove how well Contador is going, and I think he's going pretty well.
Rob Hales is also here in Catalonia, and he is an aero nutcase, and right now I just know that he's getting very animated about an unzipped jersey flapping in the wind. It's all about wattage, and when you're just chucking it away at a situation such as that, he doesn't like it.
No, if this would have been on the flat and he's doing 45-50 kilometers an hour, then I would have said yes, definitely. When you're climbing, it's also so much about your comfort and not overheating and so on. That these guys are going probably 23-24 kilometers an hour going up this climb here. The aerodynamic advantage isn't quite as big. Yes, there still is some, but it's very, very small. So if you're feeling better by unzipping the jersey and getting some air on your chest, then that might actually have a bigger impact than the slight loss of aerodynamics.
Peter Weening's using the road beautifully. He's shortening the route home on every single curve, and he's able to do it at the moment because although this is an especial climb because of its
length and steepness,
18.5 kilometres, and indeed the steep sections, which are 12, there are recovery zones within it.
There are some recovery zones, yeah, but we're looking at 6.8 average. That's still a focused enough climb to really hurt. And as soon as it flattens out, they just go that much faster. So
yeah,
you don't actually, when it gets down towards 3, 4, maybe 5%, these guys are looking at, should I get up into the big ring or do I stay in the little one for a bit? And that just means that they're flying up there.
Some time gaps would be nice, wouldn't it, to those who are up the road?
Well, I was just about to say that the last time gap has just come in here, and it's 5:35 from Weening to the group of the favourites here.
Wow, that was quite a push then.
Yeah, I mean it's quite a push by the peloton, but Peter Weening is going incredibly strong, and he's now, as we see here, a minute ahead of De Gent and Nerviti.
There it is. There goes Weening, De Gent and Nerviti, and behind them, of course, Wout Poels.
It would be interesting to see where Poels is. I think that may have been him just going through these guys now.
Well, the helicopters look clearly listening to us, but yeah, the data exists. That's the painful thing for both you at home and of course for us as our brains start to fizz. You can see Lawrence ten Dam as well, just struggling there. It's a rangy figure just disappearing into the trees. And yes, neutral service just getting out. This suggests that there may well be a gap that's about to be closed by the pack. If the camera could just drift a little bit further down the mountain, we might be able to see that. Neutral service cars have behaved themselves so far this year after having a rough time of things last year.
Fingers crossed, so far so good.
Yep, exactly. They're supposed to service.
Although there has been a couple of incidents so far already this year with motorbikes and such up in Belgium, I believe it was, on the opening weekend.
I think I said it about the neutral service. They're supposed to service, not neutralise. That's what they were busy doing last year.
Yeah,
we chuckled,
it's
but
unfortunate.
it could have been very, very dangerous, to be honest. But yes, this man though, he has put all his eggs in one basket as we approach Easter. I don't know, is he going to be happy today? Only 20 k's an hour. We've got, what, half an hour remaining of this hurt.
Yeah, something like that. I was going to say that used to be the best part about racing on the Easter weekend is when your Tour of Flanders open up, you know, your Musette bag and you found little Easter eggs in there. That would, you know, that's always nice to have with you out on the bike.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we are. I think we'll probably see one on Sunday. Let's see. Moving on. My mind was taking me somewhere I really didn't want to go there.
No. And I'm quite happy you stopped yourself.
11 kilometres to go. Yeah, Web or Chocolati. We don't want to talk about it. So Aviti and De Ghent plying their trade. Well, to be fair, there's a lot of drama going on at the moment, and we're not seeing the best of it, courtesy of the cameras. I'd really like to see how the main bunch are struggling. The camera that's been on the main pack, unfortunately, the main body of the peloton has been at fault the last couple of days. Today it seems to be functioning okay, but I'd love to see who's doing the driving on to catch these guys. That's the story today.
Do you want me to guess?
Go on then.
I think Tinkoff is still on the front of that one, and soon they're going to change. And
BMC and Tinkoff and are Orica going to go for this in the form of Chavez? He looked sprightly today. Well, we're down to what, about 35-40 riders here. That's about your lot, and there's going to be some big time gaps at the end of the day. But it's the shakeout. They say if you win today, then you're possibly going to win the race. It's certainly the one that determines our winner, I think it's fair to say.
I think there's a large chance of that happening, yes. I find it very interesting to see that Sky has actually moved a man out into that gap between the breakaway and the peloton, and a strong one at that, with about poles. But you know, it's not something that we see Team Sky do an awful lot. They tend to keep all their manpower very close at hand, and it just wrapped around the team leader.
Who's going for this then? From this distance, very, very difficult to say. It's the sort of thing Chavez would have a go at, but
it's too big for Bill.
It's too big for him, yeah, exactly. Tinkoff are keeping their powder dry within the main pack, and there's Dan Martin, struggling today, but he's had a lot of pressure, and his team have borne it very well, haven't they?
Well, they've done a great job and looked after him so far, but again, going to come up a bit short in manpower for the final few kilometres up here. There's still an awful long way to the top on this climb. Peter Weening has decided that the big ring is the choice of gear at this point.
Yes, indeed, and he's churning it like a good one. He always looks like he's going very, very slowly, but compared to everybody else, he most certainly isn't.
No, he's certainly not. He's borderline holding the pace with the peloton. So, you know, we haven't seen a new time gap recently, but looking at Peter Weening, he's not slowing down.
No, he's not. He's got a chance. What's happened to Imanol Iviti? That's what I want to know as well. He
was sitting there with Thomas de Ghent, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Just about a minute and 5 seconds down on these guys at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he's going to be able to reignite. I think that was his chance, and Peter Weening has basically snuffed out that little candle. Let's see how he goes right now. The road surface just starting to fracture ever so slightly. It's a little bit rougher. No more descending to be done, so we won't worry about the fissures in the road on this incline as we are going up and the speeds are low. Coming the other way, it might actually be an issue with pinch punctures, etc. There is De Ghent. No picture of Aviti in that particular shot, and there is the peloton. 5 minutes and 19. 1 minute and 4 is the gap to Aviti and De Ghent. 5 minutes cushion with 10k to go. That looks pretty handy.
Yeah, that looks promising for Peter Weening, and I think if he can just keep on working on this pace that he's holding now, and not fatigue too much in the next sort of 5-6 kilometers, he's got a chance of making this. Although we haven't yet seen the big guns starting to go for it, but I guess tactically, Peter Weening isn't a sort of a danger man for the general classification with the where he's sitting now. I think he's just over 11 minutes down on the general classification. but and that means that the guys don't have to chase him too much. Robbie Hessink.
Yeah, it was Hessink that rolled off the front. It was bleached out the camera. It looked a more whitish jersey, which confused us, but it is Hessink that's decided to just peel off and go for it. We're getting some arty shots now. They're trying to think of a way of animating this one. We had Durasek earlier on in the break. Clearly one of those that's just suffering a little bit at the end of the day. Peter Venning sucker for punishment after going for it yesterday. I wonder whether everyone thought surely it's not going to be him again today. He's got the belief though.
Well, he put himself in the early break this morning, and as clearly as one of the best climbers in that group, managed to save some energy for this final part of the race.
So Mick Lenahan wants to know, Maggie, what you reckon his gearing is today.
Well, the gearing, I think, for Weaning today would, looking at the gears that he's turning and the cadence that he's turning over, he would be on a 53.39, which is kind of the standard gear ratio that the riders are working with. Although there are some riders, and certainly on the very focused mountain stages in the Tour, depending on how you pedal and what you're capable of, what you're used to as well.
Oh, we even see bike changes, don't we, in the past?
Yeah, you definitely get some of that happening at certain points. So the gear selection comes down to each individual rider's choice of where they feel comfortable. Usually there's a smaller, lighter person that tends to go for the really small front rings and work with that. It's just a different type of way of pedaling. A bigger guy, like for instance, if you drop me on the 36, I basically just stop. I can't make the gear work for me. But on the 39, I'm still okay. Or used to be, I should say.
Yes. So, Mick Lenahan, are you finally giving up competition now and focusing on grown-up stuff?
Yeah, focusing on grown-up stuff, coaching and so on and so on. So, yeah. Yeah,
and it's called Maggie's...
It's called Backstead Coaching.
Backstead Coaching. Yeah, check it out. 9 kilometres. I think we'll allow you that.
Thank you.
9 kilometres to go. It's also got a coffee shop, but apparently, think of the past. 9 kilometres to go. Head of the race is declared as Peter Weening. You've known that for quite some time. And in fact, the cars here just paying close attention to him. They haven't been called out of the gap, which tells you that it's more than a minute, and it is. It's a big ask to be on your own and do this. It's what you do in training, and you've kind of got to clear your mind and just get on with the task at hand, haven't you?
Well, you have, but like you said, you do spend an awful lot of time in this particular way, not necessarily with a number on your back, but certainly in training. Every climb that you do is for this particular purpose, really. So I'm sure that he's more than comfortable where he's sitting.
Thank you very much, by the way, for your thoughts. Somebody's established a website called @saidcarlton, which quotes me ad infinitum, but nice to have things Carlton says at @saidcarlton up there as well. I refer to them sometimes myself and think, really? And he's right. He or she keeps great tabs on me. 5 minutes and 14 the pack to Peter Weening. The peloton being led, as you can see, by Dan Martin and his erstwhile supporter. It's Carlos Verona that's guiding him up, and that's where we're going, near enough anyway. Radio signals beaming back home that Peter Weening is doing it for the Netherlands today on a sad day for Holland and the Low Countries in general, I guess, with the passing of Johan Cruyff, the amazing footballer who never managed to win the World Cup despite being in the final, of course, and beat by Germany. Yes, had a Dutch friend whose father was entirely teetotal, never had a drink in his entire life, except that particular night. He just couldn't face reality. Peter Weening, though, is writing a great story here, and it's factual. This is no fantasy. In a minute and 2 he's got over Aviti, and indeed a much bigger advantage, around 5 minutes, or it was last time of asking, to the main contenders for this race. Now, Weening's deficit at the top of the day for Rome Pot. It's on my second page. 11 minutes and 13, so he's no great threat to the main players, the battlers for the title, as we head to Port Aine. Finally stuck an E on this one. So yes, there will be a secondary fight, that is for sure. A punch up further down the mountain for the leader's jersey. Somebody wants to rip it off the back of Dan Martin.
There's no question about that, and the question is just how long we're going to have to wait for that big first sort of big move from one of the favourites. We've already seen Wout Poels heading out there. We haven't actually picked up any pictures. We don't really know where he is on the mountain, to be honest. But then Robic Hessink went after him as well, and is now, or was at least, just ahead of the bunch. So I think it's just a question of time now, really. Another kilometre or two before someone starts making a move.
Dave Scott's not happy. He says, please leave out the vacuous stuff and just get on with the commentary. Dave, if we had something to tell you, we'd tell you. 8 kilometres to go, and Peter Weening is, well, trying to smooth this one out, but he really is rolling with it. This is starting to hurt, Magnus.
Well, there's no doubt about it. He's done about 10 kilometres of climbing already, and has got 8 left to go, so no doubt he will be hurting at this point. And he's not actually pulling out any further on the gap towards to the Ghent and Erviti. So let's just put it this way: I don't think this is 100% done just yet. 7 kilometers in a minute goes very quickly if you hit that magic wall.
There we are. When you that's a shame. That's a chapter that's now been dealt with, I think.
Yeah, clearly the guys in the bunch there were quite keen. Oh, here we go, big move.
At long last, somebody wants to reach out and go for it, and Lopez can't help himself and does exactly that. The Colombian, well, we said there's plenty of Colombians here to conjure with, and I guess when we talked about Rigoberto Urán falling off people's radar, it's because of the absolute plethora of talent that's coming out of the Americas, courtesy of Colombia. They're sprightly, they're ambitious, and they're showing it now.
They certainly are, and he's just catching up to Robert Hessink here. So big move here by Lopez. This could again, just put a bit of fright into the rest of the guys.
Well, he's only 22 years of age, is Miguel Angel Lopez. Astana, happy to have taken him on board. Great supporter, of course, in the mountains of Vincenzo Nibali, one of the very few who are not here of the major players.
But again, though, 11 minutes and 40 seconds down on the general classification. It's not really going to cause any major upsets if they let him go up the road, and that's totally fine. I guess the problem is going to be if someone like Fabio Aru decides to have a go. They got Tandil can get in there as well, and Paulo Tiralongo, Dario Cataldo, all riders are very capable of effectively winning this race.
Well, there's so many big names here. It's anyone's guess, but right now we're guessing that Peter Weening is heading for glory, unless he blows up, of course. Magnus, you can hit the wall at any moment. I'm just hoping it doesn't happen to Peter.
You certainly can. Right now it comes down to not necessarily what you ate 5 minutes ago, but what you ate at the start of the day. How well have you looked after yourself throughout the whole stage? And when you got these big mountain stages, you tend to spend an hour climbing, and it's very difficult to eat when you're sitting there on the climb and you're close to your maximum heart rate. It just becomes very difficult. So, and then obviously all of a sudden you get over the top and you drop down the other side and need both hands on the handlebars, really. So it takes quite a bit of doing to look after yourself and feed yourself properly through on the stage like this.
Anyone can get it wrong, even the big names. You saw notably, of course, Chris Froome.
Yeah, everyone gets it wrong at some point. The latest gap is 5 minutes and 14 seconds down to the bunch.
Lopez then striking out, but the deficit was just on your screen there, just over 11 minutes and 40 in fact, so well over 11 minutes. So he might have a chance today, but it's a long all the way over. It was 5 minutes the last gap of note to this man, and there we are, takes a gel sling.
That could be an expensive one as well. You're not actually supposed to feed within the final 20 kilometers. So
well, as as of course we alluded to Chris Froome's moment where he needed sustenance. Hand went up, it was claiming a technical, car came up and food was administered, and the race director on the Tour de France was not happy at all.
No, definitely not. And rules are rules, and you've got to stick to them. So I guess when you got teammates, usually when you're in the final 15-20 kilometers like this, then you tend to just go to ask your teammates, have you got anything left, and sort of share the food that's available.
Well, it was Avita that went off. De Gent managed to get to him, but so did Peter Weening, who sailed by the pair of them on the penultimate climb, or indeed on the approach to this one. And looks like he's making this stick. 6 kilometers to go. There's some very sprightly attacks going on, and this man, Lopez, is engaged in one of them. He's going to get a position, that's for sure.
Well, it's far from done yet, but there's a massive job being done by Carlos Verona from Ethics Quickstep for Dan Martin now on the front of the bunch.
Wow. Well, when do you start to blank out around you? You get very much tunnel vision when you're at the end of all your reserves, don't you?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and that would have been about 2 hours ago. I tended to be very focused throughout the whole race, really.
Speed Metal Cycling says that Lopez, who's on the chase, of course, is known as Superman Lopez. Doesn't really scam, but apparently he says seriously that is his name, and he is flying at the moment, although he's wearing his underpants. Well, he's not wearing any underpants, but they're not on the outside of his outfit. A la Superman, or is that Batman? Not sure. Maybe it's both. 6 kilometers to go then, and he's on one of those little zones of respite. Nice to see Irish Corner is alive and well. Plenty of Irish tricolours for us to play with, and it's all breaking down behind as minor places start to open up and start to tempt responses. It is Nieve that's going for this. Richie Porte and TJ Van Garderen want to stay close at hand and keep alive their chances of this title. We said there'd be a secondary battle, and now it's starting to open up.
Well, now they've finally really put the pressure on the pedals, and we're starting to see the battle for the overall. Although I think Nieve just went for an attack and got shut down very quickly indeed. But this could be the start of things.
It certainly could be. BMC have got so many strengths in numbers.
Sanchez on the front here now.
Absolutely determined. It is Sanchez that's leading them just for the time being, and he's great at this sort of thing. Just behind is Dan Martin in the leader's jersey, now with no more teammates around him. Richie Porte and TJ very, very much close at hand. And likewise, we have plenty of other options here too. Verwijk, Chris Bokemans of Belgium. We have 5 kilometers only remaining. That's for the leaders, don't forget, and the leading light, Peter Weening. These guys, a lot more climbing to do than he.
Yeah, still quite a bit of climbing to be done. There's still about just over 5 minutes down on Peter Weening. So Weening now hitting, just haven't gone through the 5 kilometers to go of this climb. I think he can start to just about see the finish line, just about, if he looks straight up in the sky.
Dane Cash talking about Superman Lopez as well. He's a fantastic prospect. More than that, he's already had victories himself and clearly believes in today. But Peter Weening, for the time being, he's threading an orange thread through this tapestry of a mountain at the moment, and it's an absolutely spectacular effort he's putting in. This is one of those little respite zones that we're talking about. You'll see a chapel in a minute, and I don't know whether it's going to take divine intervention for him to make it. 48 seconds now, it's starting to fall. De Gent and Aviti have been working together, and De Gent again still being lent on as the principal of this duo, and is he going to strike out himself and try and close the gap? 58 seconds, it's starting to close. He's lost about 10 or 12 seconds in the last 3k.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think this is over just yet. Looking at Thomas again, he looks very composed and very riding in much more sort of, what should we call it, normal gear than Peter Weening, and I think that's going to pay off in the long run. And if Thomas again can start to just spot Peter Weening on the odd occasion when they go up over this little plateau here. Now you go out towards the forest over there, and then swing a left, and you got a couple of switchbacks before you really start sort of looking towards the finish line.
Well, you can hear the security bike up front just sounding the siren just to make sure that everyone is clear out of the road, and then somebody steps in to take their own photograph. And they're busy looking at the screen and not actually looking at the rider, honestly. Anyway, I'm not going to overdwell on it because it's great to see the fans here, and that's what's so wonderful about the cycling and this great sport of ours, mountain passes such as this. They've put a lot of time and effort to get into this position, and they're determined to see their heroes. 47 seconds now is the gap, and De Gent is doing a Stelvio.
Yeah, definitely. He's still got a chance of winning this one, and Wiening now is really hurting on this climb here. It does flatten out a fraction after this little right-hand turn.
That was them just shouting Venga, Venga, and hop, hop, hop.
But Peter Wiening still on the big chainring going up here, though. There's got to be a better way to keep moving forward.
Well, he's doing what he can for the time being, and so is everybody else. It's like a slow motion battle, this.
Sammy Sanchez still on the front of this group, though, with Dan Martin on the wheel, and then the whole of the BMC team just behind Dan Martin there in the white jersey and the blue shorts.
Great to see Dan Martin still keeping it going here without any more teammates. He's had to burn them today to keep the break, I guess, within view, because there were some real threats within the breakaway earlier on. Most of that's been neutralised now.
Yeah, it has been neutralised. I'm still quite baffled that no one has really hit out just yet. 4 kilometres, well, that's for Peter Wiening, 4 kilometres to go, but after yesterday, where they waited so long, I thought that they may just actually start hitting each other a bit early, and really trying to sort of get that big time gap that they're going to need.
Let me tell you about these last 3 kilometres, shall we? He comes through that banner. This is what he's got to deal with. In about 700 metres, there's a flat section of about 170, 200 metres. Then it's flatter. It's an incline, but not quite as bad as he's dealt with. Again, another flat section with 1.5 to go, and that's when all the hairpins towards the end, the last few. There's a hairpin at 2Ks. Once he turns around, that's a flattish section, then it kicks up again. It's not pleasant. It was not designed to be. This is supposed to be the ultimate test. That's why it's been given a special category. What would be an OR category in the Tour de France, HC, is E for Especial here. Special. You've got to be special to win it. Peter Wiening is a special kind of guy, but is he going to be special enough today?
Well, that's the question. The bunch is now just under 4 minutes down on the on Peter Wiening as well, so they're certainly moving at some pace.
Look beyond the cars and see if you can see De Gent. We mentioned the Stelvio. Let's just remind you of it. He knows the Stelvio climb. It was the big test on the Giro d'Italia in 2012. And he shot off. He did what Wiening's doing right now, and then ate into the mountain. And in fact, for much of the climb, it looked like he was going to take the lead of the Giro d'Italia and maybe just win the whole event. In the end, due to attacks that rolled behind him, and of course time trial at the end, he finished third, but on the podium. Now, this man has got to hope that De Gent is not minded to repeat the feat. Of course he wants to, but whether he can is something else. Wiening himself has just got to keep going, and this is absolute torture for this man. He's been up here for such a long time on his own, nobody to relay with, and nobody even to share a conversation or a grunt with, Magnus.
Well, it's like I said, it's a difficult one to do. When you're in this kind of position like Peter Wiening are right now, you got to just focus on what you're doing. Focus on your power output. Most of these guys have got the power meter with them. You've got to just get on with the job at hand and try not to think so much about what your legs are telling you. It's the famous Genzi quote there, shut up.
Rekening mee dat we er aanstaande zondag al zijn om 12:30 'middags. De rest van de week.
De Gent is actually seeing the cars in front of him, the cars behind Peter Wiening, and that's going to motivate him now to try and get back on terms with Peter.
Well, just for those of you at home who were following us earlier on today, Hugh Carthy is in the main body of the chasers. He's not that far behind Dan Martin, unless I'm completely mistaken, but I believe it is he within that group, and well done to the young man. Fantastic. 3Ks remaining then. It's much less than that. In fact, he's going to be approaching the 2 kilometre to go banner fairly soon. Now, you'll know when 2Ks arrive because there's a horrible hairpin he's got to take before he gets a little bit of respite in the run to about 1.5 Ks to go. And then there's a series of turns, including a nasty one right at the very end. And this day might... Oh, look! There is De Gent. I'm just seeing him with the lights on the side of the road. De Gent has got Wiening within his sights and he's starting to close the gap. Thomas De Gent is striking out. He loves a bit of snow, quite clearly. 2 kilometres to go. My goodness, the flaring lights, they're pulling these cars single file to allow De Gent room to come through. The motorcycle also stops here, and Wiening must surely know he's got no automotive company. No, he's got a man who's determined, and he's chasing him down now with less than 2 kilometres to go.
And the big guns are going. TJ van Garderen going off the front here now.
Contador, Quintana, they're all here. They want a piece of this day. Richie Porte just staying behind for the time being, but TJ goes.
And this is dangerous now. You can't let TJ get this bigger gap because he's one of these guys that just find the rhythm, and that's what he does best on the climbing. He's just set that high.
Van Garderen ook oud-ritwinnaar hier in Catalonië.
Kom op, naar voren. We willen zien.
Wat proberen, maar goed, dit is...
That decides to engage in the pursuit. He just rolls around the corner, but in so doing he's still got Dan Martin for company. Quintana likewise. Contador's weaving all over the road as well, trying to shake them, which he's given to do, and it's Quintana that stays with him for the time being. Right now TJ though has a look on the hairpin. He gets a chance to have a reasonable look, and there is Contador with Quintana and then Dan Martin, that trio of talent chasing on. Oh, and here it is, heartbreak for Peter Wiening and joy for De Gent if he can keep this going. Now, will he just sit in or will he sail straight by and break the heart? Don't forget he's only got about 1,500 metres to go. The
move here is just to attack straight away, and that's what he does.
Yes, just accelerates past, and Wiening's head goes straight down. He'll try his best to retrieve the situation, but De Gent kicks on. Big hairpin coming up, and then it's going to be that push to the line, but he looks very good for this.
He's certainly looking very strong indeed, and Peter Wiening is not going to have much to respond to that little move with. You don't need much of an attack when you're catching someone like that. It's just getting out of the saddle ever so slightly and just picking up by half a kilometre or so, and that's all that's needed when you have someone who's been sitting on the limit for 16 kilometres of this climb.
Well, he did it, as we said, on the Stelvio, the big climb of the Giro d'Italia 2012. It was, to his mind, the greatest win of his career, despite the fact taking a couple of stages on the Pyrenees. Look at this, it's Richie Porte that goes for it. He distances everybody. Contador tries to stay with him. I said Richie Porte had got something today. Will he be the leader's jersey? Contador is feeling fresh, he says, in a very good place at this time of the year. Porte goes, Contador follows, Quintana's in the wake. No sign of anyone like Aru, and Dan Martin is just starting to fade at the moment. Further down you see a couple of guys from Calendar, one of which is Oran. Out front it's this man eating into the mountain. It says 2Ks. We know there's less than that right now. He's taken a hairpin and he is sailing in. I think the ticket is wrong. Let's hope for his sake it is, because this is the end of what has been a huge day. It was supposed to be the decider. Thomas De Gent has done another great run here today. Well, starting off at the top of the day with his intentions declared, and Lotto Soudal will be absolutely delighted by this effort by him. He really is an outstanding talent, we know that. Started the day nearly 20 minutes down, so it's of no consequence as far as the overall concerned. This is, though, however, TJ's been found, and it's Contador that's wound him in with Quintana right there, and there is Richie Porte as well. Goodness me, there's so much here, and there's Dan Martin picking it back up again.
Well, Dan Martin is still in there. Rigoberto Urán, I think I can see in the back of that group as well, but that, strangely, no Team Sky Riders.
Wow, there we are. Well, they got found out yesterday, and maybe it's happened again today. The two principals, or the main hopes for BMC, are within this group. It's being led by Alberto Contador at the moment, with Quintana hot on his wheel. The Flamme Rouge beckons. So just a couple of turns to take for Thomas De Gent. It's going to be a famous victory for him. There's no catching this man today. The great Belgian, that country has suffered so much of late. he's done a different kind of sufferance today, but he'll be dedicating this victory, you can be absolutely certain, to those fallen back home.
We go,
Meanwhile, Nairo picks it up. Quintana goes with Contador on his tail, and that's Richie Porte trying to just make amends. Oh, look at this. There's a Viti from a little bit earlier on today that's just been caught, and this will help Quintana potentially. What will be the response of Contador?
Well, Contador is going to have to keep this going now. Well, both of them are really, because they're distanced, both TJ van Garderen and Richie Porte. It looks like TJ is the first man on the road there from BMC behind this duo of riders now.
So into the flaring light, and it's Quintana with Contador. They've got great respect for each other, and normally it's Contador that gets lent on. At a moment such as this, they're going to try the old 1-2, but Aviti's got nothing left. I don't think they're going to sail by him, and Contador has got an interest in keeping the cadence going right now. Aviti goes backwards, Contador and Quintana go forwards, and oh, look at the wreckage out here. There goes Aviti, almost tagged by the motorcycle, and Quintana picks it up. Said yesterday was a tough day, but he expected more of today. Contador said he's feeling very, very good and would invest something today, and so it has proven. Two men with the confidence to declare themselves in a good place, and they are right now as far as the title is concerned.
Well, these are the guys who are going to battle it out now. I think they've put a big enough gap between themselves and the BMC riders. As long as they don't stop here now and start playing cat and mouse and focusing on the stage win, this should be our two men for the general classification.
Well, some enthusiastic fans just blocking the road ever so slightly, but to no malintent. Meanwhile, out front, I think we're going to miss the finish of De Gent unless we hook back there rather smartish, and here it is.
They've brought back a lot in the last kilometre.
They have, and to be honest, they're in the last K. He's in the last few hundred metres, takes the final turn, and Thomas De Gent does his country proud. They have been wounded back home in Belgium, and this will be as but a sticking plaster upon that gaping wound. But nonetheless, it will bring some joy, and in fact remind us of our focus that sport is on occasions just so very, very important for the mood of an entire nation. And that, my friend, was a very, very fine piece of cycling. He's done a great job, and Quintana's dropped Contador. He's going for a fine advantage here, and it's going to be enough to take the leader's jersey for Quintana. But the victory goes to De Gent. And I honestly can say this, I am so happy for him, and I'm absolutely delighted for the people of Belgium. Meanwhile, behind, Quintana just rolls back the very brave Peter Weening. Not even going to be a podium if Contador sees him as well. Quintana rolls in, and there's bonus seconds, and they're stacking up for this man. 10 seconds has gone to De Gent of no consequence, almost 20 minutes down overall at the top of the day. But this is useful for Quintana. This is a big, big gap he's going to have at the end of the day, and just watch that clock roll. Here it is after nearly 5 hours in the saddle. Quintana is fresh, Quintana is dangerous, Quintana is the leader of this race, and Quintana deserves to be in that jersey at the end of this evening.
Well, Quintana had 19 seconds deficit to Dan Martin at the start of the day, Contador at 6. So he's going to get the jersey, but I don't think by an awful lot.
Well, this race is still very much alive. It's a great design that Catalonia have done for us. He takes the curve, comes in, will take the finish line right now. It's a nasty, spiteful little curve at the end of what has been a brutal day, and it'll be Contador that comes across the line next, and he'll gain those 4 seconds. No, absolutely not. Well, why
Richie.
not? Yeah, it's Richie Porte that's the defending champion, I was about to say, who's made this stick, and it's a race for the line because it's bonus seconds up for grabs. A sprint right at the very last. I think Richie may have just nicked it from Alberto there, so no bonus seconds for Alberto Contador. My goodness, what a day, and what a breakaway performance it has been by some as well.
Yeah, Peter Weening just coming in there with TJ van Garderen, Ilnur Zakarin, and then here comes Chris Froome with Romain Bardet and Dan Martin.
It is Dan Martin. Chris Froome picking it up just ahead of Bardet and Dan Martin. His head goes down.
Hugh Carthy.
And that's Carthy. It's my boy Hugh. Fantastic. I told you he's in the vanguard. And so it proves the young man is still doing it, and more or less on his own, we remind you. Ah, what a day. I think this is Aviti, and there is Oran alongside him. It's not Aviti, but that is Oran, Rigoberto Oran. Good to see him functioning well. Count all the big names that come across the line right now, and then remember that Hugh Carthy, the British youngster who rides for Kyle Roral, had the beating of them. Wow, what a day. It was always designed to be the big one, and so it has proven.
He certainly has proven. That was quite an exciting final couple of kilometres, and what a great stage by Thomas de Gent. And I think we've got to take our hats off to Peter Weening as well. That was a gutsy ride that he put in. Probably went a bit too hard in the beginning of the climb, and had to pay for it towards the back end of it. But nevertheless, I've got to take my hat off to that one.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it today. It's been one heck of a race, and Thomas de Gent does a Stelvio. Good man, good man.
De la Molina, arribada també per corredor eritreu Merhau Kudus. Aquí tenim Miguel Ángel López, l'home que ha intentat...
Nice for Belgium to have some other headlines for tomorrow.
Yeah, quite definitely so. And like I said, it was a gutsy ride by Thomas de Gent and Peter Weening, but Thomas de Gent rode that very intelligently on the final climb and just managed to hold Peter Weening back and go for the win. And Richie Porte gets the... I think he gets... I'll put that to Richie.
I think so too, but there was a lunge by Alberto, and dare I say it quietly, we are in Spain. Let's see. I'm sure nothing untoward. But here is our day's winner. What a fine win that was.
Congratulations on the win. How did you feel today in the stage 4? I
didn't have a good feeling all day. On the climbs, I had a hard time, but then when Erviti went in the downhill, I wanted to anticipate on the second climb because I had a bad feeling. But then on the last climb, I kept the tempo, and then suddenly 2 kilometers to go, I saw Weening just in front of me, and then I had to go full.
You already won a stage in Volta Catalunya in 2013. How important it is for you to win again?
Right, that was my last victory. It's been 3 years since that victory, so this is good for me, and I'm happy with the chances I get in the team, and I want to thank them for that.
There we are, gets his chances occasionally and is allowed to go for it. Today he was, and he took his chance absolutely beautifully. Nice guy, Thomas de Gent.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's one of those guys that keeps on working hard all the time, and both in favour of the team and also for himself. When he's, like you said, he gets the opportunities to go out and do these breakaways, and he's very good at doing them as well. So nice to see him get another win here, and I'm sure that's going to do an awful lot of good for his confidence.
Just waiting to get confirmation, but we believe that Quintana is our race leader. Richie Porte just lunging at the line, but watch this, watch the hands, more or less give you an indication. I still don't know who made it there. It was a late lunge by Alberto. Peter Weening, good enough for 4th place today, and that must hurt after all the effort he put in. Waiting for our official results. They usually give us them on a beauty static, which we've got right now, and a beauty motion, which we've got right now. And still we wait. I guess they're looking at the photo between Richie and Bertie.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly so.
Great day's racing. What have we got still to come? We've got Val's tomorrow. It's a rolling puncheurs stage, 2 category 2 climbs and a bit of a roller coaster entry into town. You might well get some quick men having some fun tomorrow. Likewise, the day after to Le Geltrou, and then we finally finish with that brutal 8 laps in Barcelona. Thomas again takes the day, 1:08 clear of Nairo Quintana. Richie Porte it was that got the nod ahead of Alberto Contador. TJ Van Garderen in 5th place, and indeed, 13 seconds down. Finishing also there, Dan Martin with the same time, but that time is 1:45. So, yeah, 23 seconds. Gosh, it's close. It's very close. 1:08, though. I think Quintana is happy enough. But Richie Porte, Dan Martin's certainly still going to be up there as we go into some of the rolling stages, which might actually suit him very well.
They may very well do so, but I think over the next couple of days now, depending on who we actually get in the leader's jersey, there may be some very good opportunities for more breakaways, and certainly now that the time gaps have opened up even further on the general classification, tomorrow could be one of those days where a break goes early on in the morning and actually makes it all the way to the finish.
There we are. So they may well keep their powder dry, the big boys, until we get to Barcelona, and that it might
to
go
be fair,
right.
there are not that many big boys here.
But it could, well, you mean stature-wise, but the greatest of names. It could come down to the wire, this race, couldn't it? Be decided on the final day.
I think the final day is going to be an interesting one, definitely. Certainly, if it's only within a couple of seconds, then we could have some very interesting racing.
So here is our new leader, Nairo Quintana. 1 Grand Tour win, Giro d'Italia. He has been extraordinarily consistent last year with his win in the Tirreno Adriatico, and of course twice second as he was runner-up in the Tour de France. Well, he started this season looking very, very comfortable and happy, and with a sense of surety about, certainty almost about his form. He's happy to say when he feels good, and that's really a rider who's got nothing to hide when he actually is. Couldn't get the win on the stage though, Quintana. That indeed went to this man, Thomas de Gendt. Still waiting for our overall classification and indeed our leader's jersey, but it will go to Nairo Quintana of Movistar.
El 30 d'abril i 1 de maig, el Bicircuit Festival us porta curses de BTT Gran Fondo 24 hores, Fronton i Copa Catalana. També hi haurà activitats per a nens, zona expo i mercat de segona mà. Una gran festa pels amants del ciclisme i per tota la família. Més informació i inscripcions a Bicircuit.
Here's your overall standings. Nairo Quintana leads this race by a margin of 8 seconds only over Alberto Contador. Richie Porte is 17 seconds down. Dan Martin still in the house. In with a chance with 24 seconds deficit. TJ Van Garderen 27, Bardet, Zakarin, Froome. Hugh Carthy is only 1:01 down. What great names surround him. King of the Mountains, Thomas de Gendt. Why wouldn't it be? Taking the Especials. So he's got a jersey, not the leader's jersey, but the leader of the King of the Mountains. Strong still very much part of proceedings. De Gendt's got to pick himself up and go for it once more when it's a breakaway day. After today, he'll be exhausted, but he'll take that win most definitely. There's your intermediate sprints. Thomas de Gendt leads this as well, so he'll be lending that jersey to Cohen Bowman tomorrow. Wow, what racing we've had, and it's going to go on. This race always draws some big names. It's always entertaining. We've very much enjoyed ourselves today, Magnus, and there's no reason why we shouldn't for the rest of this one.
No, I think it's still far from over with only 8 seconds between the first two riders. There's going to be a few more battles to be had on this on the next couple of days.
3 more stages to come on this Volta Catalunya. We're going to be here, and we expect you to be as well. It's been a great day. 3 more fabulous ones to come, and I'll be bound our winner will only be found at the line in Barcelona. Well, it's a bit nippy, but the sun is up. I'm thinking beer and a chorizo. What do you think? Cerveza chorizo?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
It's hard to say cleanly.
It is.
Yeah. Or maybe a bowl of paella. I'm not quite sure. We'll let you know tomorrow. and it looks like we may have time to stay for the podiums, but they do generally take quite a long time. But anyway, we'll hang around. Don't forget, if you'd like to join the Twitter conversation and cheer some of the naysayers up, then please feel free to do so. It's at Carlton Kirby, CarltonKirby, or at Maggie_PR. And there's the motorcycle coming. Not the Harley Davidson, unfortunately, so the potato sound is not echoing down the valley. Well, we still wait for our podium, and in fact the fans here are doing a good job of actually staying in what little sunshine remains up at the top, even having trouble with the word sunshine. Haven't even had a Theveta yet. Anyway, thank you for your good general thoughts, which are nice to hear. Corbus Snyman, Gerald Dunn, Helveds, Who's Your Madness, of course. He always seems to be in the house over there in the United States. Nairo Quintana then is our leader. Bertie Contador 8 seconds down. Contador's got to believe he can win this, especially with the bonus seconds factored in.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of racer that will go out and hunt these seconds now. So it's going to be really interesting to watch the next couple of days now.
Well, some of the early sprints as well. It may be that if a breakaway hasn't formed themselves, particularly on stage 6, the first sprint comes very, very early. It could be that you see some of the overall contenders just trying to hunt down odd seconds. 3, 2 and 1, don't forget, at the 2 intermediate sprints every day, so a maximum of 6 seconds before you even get to the line, and where the maximum bonus is of course 10 seconds, 10, 6 and 4 at the line. Bonus seconds count for a lot. To my mind, they make it a race such as this, of this length, all the more interesting.
I always prefer the bonus seconds, even in the Grand Tours, to be perfectly honest. I think it just adds an element of interest to it. Everyone races for the positions, even for sprinting for the win. So yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch this.
Well, it seems that the podium is taking some time. Apparently, there's some steps missing. I'm joshing. So while the boys are still cooling down, we're going to cool off. It's time for us to take our leave from you here, I'm afraid. And so we look forward to your company tomorrow as we head towards Valls. Slightly longer tomorrow, 187 kilometres. Same place, same time, different destination, obviously. So we expect your company tomorrow. Thanks for gracing us with your presence today. Me and Magnus are going to go for a well-earned break, and then we'll be back with you tomorrow, hopefully with yet more sunshine. For now, though, our congratulations to Thomas de Gendt, who took a fine victory today, and of course to Nairo Quintana, who is the new leader of this great race. See you tomorrow.